Chapter 7, Who is to Blame? This is part 2. It's just sort of the tag end of the chapter. Grandfather was the first to rise to his feet. He then helped his father up. Great-grandfather was still staring intently at Anastasia. Then he slowly turned around and started walking off. Grandfather, in the meantime, started muttering away, though it wasn't clear whether he was addressing anyone in particular. Quote, "All the same, they're all spoiling her. Even he spoils her. Dear me, just look at what she's gotten into. She pokes her nose in wherever she feels like it. There's nobody to teach her a lesson. Who will now help the Dashniks? Who, I say?" Great-grandfather stopped in his tracks. He slowly turned around and said distinctly in his deep, velvety voice, "Granddaughter dear, follow the dictates of your heart and soul. I myself shall help you with the Dashniks." Turning away once again, the majestic graybeard started on his way out of the glade. Quote, "Do you see what I mean? They're all spoiling her," Grandfather broke in again. Picking up a short stick, he strutted over to Anastasia. Waving the stick about his head, he threatened, "I'm going to teach her a lesson right now." Uh-oh, Anastasia threw up her hands in feigned fright. Then she gave a laugh and ran off, trying to elude her pursuing grandfather. Quote, "So she's even taken it into her head to run away from me, as if I couldn't catch up," he muttered under his breath. With unaccustomed ease and speed, he intensified his pursuit. Anastasia ran laughing, weaving her way across the glade, and while Grandfather did not relax his pace, he was still unable to catch up. Suddenly, Grandfather gasped and sat down, grasping his leg. Anastasia quickly turned about, her face full of concern. She ran over to her grandfather and held out her hands to him. All at once she stopped. Her infectious peals of laughter filled the glade. I paid particular attention to her grandfather's pose and realized the source of her mirth. Grandfather was squatting down on one leg, holding his other leg out in front, not touching the ground. And here he was stroking the very leg he was squatting on as though it had been injured. He had outsmarted Anastasia, but she was not deceived. As it turned out later, she was supposed to have noticed right off the comic discrepancy in his pose. While Anastasia was laughing, Grandfather managed to seize her by the arm. He raised his stick and gave her a light spanking like a child. Anastasia squealed, trying to pretend it was painful, and in spite of the endless laughter she was trying so hard to restrain, Grandfather put his arms around her shoulders and said, "All right, that's enough. Don't cry. You've learnt your lesson. You've got what was coming to you. You'll be more obedient in the future." Quote, "Listen, I've started training the eagle. It may be old, but it is still strong and remembers many things. And here she's insolently poking her nose into everything." "Grandpa, my dear, sweet Grandpa, the eagle? That means you already know about the baby?" "The star, don't forget." I assume he's referring to some astrological method of learning what's going on whenever someone like Anastasia conceives. Sorry for the aside. Anyway, Anastasia didn't let her grandfather finish. Putting her arms around his waist, she lifted him off the ground and spun him around. When she returned him safely to the ground, Grandfather staggered a bit and said, trying to appear strict, "So that's the way you treat your elders. You see what I mean? You're spoiled." And, continuing to wave the stick, he hurried to catch up with his father. As he reached the trees at the edge of the glade, Anastasia called after him, "Thank you, Grandpa, for the eagle. Thank you so much." Grandfather turned around and looked at her. Quote, "Only just be, my dear child. Please remember to be." His voice was too gentle. Breaking off his sentence, he added with a bit more severity, "Watch out or else." And then he disappeared into the forest.